The movie begins in a city called Bellwood, where a man named Kevin goes to an abandoned warehouse to meet with a group of bikers. When he meets them, the bikers show Kevin a briefcase full of tubes containing chips, which according to them are part of alien technology. Kevin asks what those chips do, but the leader of the bikers says he doesn't know. At that moment, Kevin calls his friends, named Ben and Gwen. When they arrive, Kevin tells them that the chips are very complex and that he has never seen anything like them before. Suddenly, Ben's watch, known as the Omnitrix, starts to malfunction, and he thinks the chips are causing interference. Seeing this, the leader of the bikers is surprised, and says he has never seen buyers like them before. At that moment, a mysterious motorcyclist tells the leader that they are not just any buyers, but are part of an interplanetary squad called the Plumbers, whose mission is to keep peace in the galaxy. Ben is surprised and asks the motorcyclist how she knows that information. At that moment, the motorcyclist takes off her helmet and reveals herself to be Elena, who was also part of the Plumber squad, but was expelled along with her father, named Victor. Elena explains that her father is missing, and she asks Ben and his friends to help her find him. While they were talking, the group didn't notice that a mysterious man was watching them from afar, and using his powers, managed to activate the chips, causing them to break out of their capsules and start flying around the place. The chips begin to attack the group, and to defend himself, Ben tries to transform into a mutant alien. But due to the interference, he is unable to do so. At that moment, Ben uses a metal bar to get rid of the chips, but only manages to split them in two. Suddenly, the chips head toward Gwen, but she manages to use her powers to push them away. Kevin also uses his powers and, after absorbing some metal, strikes the chips. However, nothing works and more chips appear. Afraid of being attacked, the bikers get on their motorcycles and flee the scene. After that, Ben manages to grab one of the chips and, upon looking at it more closely, realizes that they are part of alien nanotechnology. Using her intelligence, Gwen discovers that the chips were attacking in an organized manner and that someone was controlling them. With this, they realize that the mysterious man was the one controlling the chips, and, using his power, the man combines all the chips to launch a powerful attack. At that moment, Ben realizes that his watch is working again. In this way, Ben unleashes his freezing breath on the chips and, after managing to trap them, destroys them. After defeating the chips, Ben heads toward the mysterious man and decides to freeze him with his icy breath. However, the man throws several chips at Gwen, but fortunately, the young woman manages to escape. After seeing that Gwen was safe, Ben and his friends realize that the mysterious man has escaped and discover that Elena has also fled. With this, Kevin concludes that Elena is possibly working for the mysterious man, and that everything she did was to lead them into a trap. Later, Ben goes to his grandfather Max's laboratory to analyze one of the chips he managed to capture. Upon arriving at the lab, Ben and his friends scan the chip and discover that, in addition to being highly technological, it also had a life of its own. Curious, Gwen decides to use her powers to trace the origin of the energy emanating from the chip. But since it was deactivated, she is unable to do so. At that moment, Ben suggests looking for Elena and asking her about the chips, but Gwen disagrees, saying she can't be trusted. Suddenly, Ben's grandfather appears and, upon seeing the chip, says that he recognizes the object, but can't remember where he saw it. At that moment, an alarm goes off, revealing that someone was breaking into the place. With this, Ben, Max, and the others try to find out who was breaking in, and shortly after, they discover that the intruder was Elena. Distrusting Elena, Max asks her to leave, but Elena refuses and asks them for help to find her father, who is missing. Although Ben wants to help her, Max orders her to leave and Gwen takes her outside. Before leaving, Elena says that Max expelled her and her father from the Plumber's squad, and that because of him, her father ended up disappearing. After this, Ben questions his grandfather and asks him what he knows about Elena's father. Max decides to reveal the truth and shows that Elena's father was the best plumber he ever trained. As the leader of the plumbers, Max considered hiring Victor to take his place. But one day, Max saw him taking alien technology from a vault. Because of this, Elena's father was expelled from the plumber's squad, and after that, he was never seen again. At that moment, Gwen asks Max what Victor took, and he says that Elena's father captured all the chips they saw earlier. Even so, Ben tries to defend Elena and says that she has nothing to do with what Victor did in the past. Upon hearing this, Max gets angry and tells Ben to stay away from her. but Ben refuses, saying that Elena is the best person he can trust to learn about the chips and find out who is controlling them. A short time later, Ben leaves his grandfather's lab angrily and tries to meet up with Elena. When he finds her, Ben says he's willing to look for Victor, and upon hearing this, Elena accepts his help. During the night, the mysterious man, who was actually Elena's father, is walking calmly down the street when, suddenly, he is approached by some men. One of the men tells Victor that he shouldn't be walking alone at night, but Victor replies that he isn't alone, and at that moment releases his chips to attack the men. At that moment, the chips attach themselves to the men's bodies and transform them into zombies so that they can be commanded by Victor. Still during the night, Ben arrives at the place where Elena first saw the chips, and they decide to investigate the area. While they are investigating, they don't realize that Victor has managed to turn more people into zombies and is commanding them to place some boxes onto a conveyor belt. Meanwhile, Kevin and Gwen manage to access the files on Max's computer and discover an old video where Max was interrogating Victor. During the interrogation, Victor reveals that the chips had a life of their own, and that if they weren't contained, the whole world would be in danger. However, Max doesn't pay attention to him, as he thought Victor was lying. After watching the video, Kevin and Gwen come to the conclusion that Victor might be telling the truth and decide to help Ben and Elena find him. After investigating a bit more, Kevin finds a place where there was the largest concentration of chips, and they discover that the place is a distribution center, so they decide to go there. Back to Ben and Elena, they find Victor's laboratory, and there they discover several notes about the chips, as well as realizing that Victor is planning to send the chips all over the world through the shipping company. While they were investigating, some people show up, and when looking into their eyes, Ben thinks they are being controlled by the chips. The people say they are there to help, and that they want to take them to the Queen. To defend himself, Ben tries to activate his watch, but since it's being interfered with by the chips, he decides to run away with Elena. Outside, Ben and Elena are surrounded, but Ben comes up with an idea, and after overloading his watch, manages to drive some people away with a burst of energy. After this, Ben and Elena try to escape, but Elena falls off her motorcycle. To help her, Ben goes to Elena and they escape together. After escaping, Ben talks with Elena and tells her that they need to go to the distribution center to investigate more about Victor. Meanwhile, Gwen and Kevin enter the distribution center and, once inside, try to find clues about the chips. Eventually, the pair finds some papers indicating that the distribution center was already sending the chips to several countries. Suddenly, an employee appears and upon seeing the two, tells them that the company is closed and orders them to come back during business hours. Gwen and Kevin find it strange that the company is closed and yet an employee is still working there. Realizing that the employee was being controlled by the chips, Kevin uses his powers and throws him away. With some documents in hand, Kevin and Gwen get into the car to escape, but at that moment, they realize that the employee is behind them. At that instant, the employee spreads his arms and reveals that he is controlling several chips to attack the pair. The chips come together and begin to attack Kevin's car. To avoid being attacked, Kevin steps on the gas and starts to flee. But shortly after, the chips come together again and transform into 3 giant balls. Being skilled at driving, Kevin dodges and causes one of the balls to be destroyed. However, the ball rebuilds itself and the chips transform into spiked balls. Seeing this, Kevin activates a turbo in his car and drives at high speed. Meanwhile, Ben and Elena find the location of the distribution center, but at that moment, they hear the sound of a car, and Ben realizes that his friend Kevin is in danger. Back to the pair, Kevin and Gwen are surrounded by the balls, and at a certain point, Kevin crashes into one of them, causing the vehicle to flip over. Fortunately, neither of them is hurt, and as they get out of the car, they think the chips are gone. However, the pair are soon surprised to see that the chips have come together again and have transformed into an even bigger ball. Just as the chips were about to attack the two, Ben appears and transforms into Humongousaur. Then, Ben starts fighting the chips and, being very strong, manages to destroy some of them with ease. However, the chips don't give up and manage to form a barrier around Ben. Ben doesn't give up and manages to break out of the barrier. After that, the chips come together again and head toward Ben. But the young man has an idea and throws Kevin's car at the chips. With this, the chips are finally destroyed, and Ben returns to his normal form. When everything calms down, Ben and the others decide to return to Max's lab to investigate the chips further. When they arrive, Max says he's receiving reports of alien activity all over the world, and Ben says it's all the chips' fault. So, Max scans one of the chips, but says they're just extraterrestrial peripherals. Suddenly, one of the chips escapes and no one notices. Meanwhile, Ben and the others continue investigating and realize that the chips are multiplying all over the world. At that moment, Ben mentions that the people who have been captured by the chips always talk about a queen. With this, Ben comes up with the idea to find the queen's location and eliminate her, so that all the other chips will be destroyed as well. So, Max orders everyone to work together and find the queen's location. However, at that moment, Max doesn't realize that the chip that had escaped climbs onto his arm and then leaves. Later, while everyone is working late, Elena talks with Ben and thanks him for trusting her. After that, Ben decides to ask his grandpa Max a question, but he can't find him. Suddenly, Max appears and tries to hit Ben with a monitor. Fortunately, Kevin shows up and, using his powers, knocks Max unconscious. A short time later, Max wakes up and the group discovers that he was being controlled by one of the chips. Max reveals the chip's plan, as they intend to colonize the entire planet, and after this, he activates a smoke mechanism and takes the opportunity to escape. Seeing that Max has disappeared, Ben tells the others that they need to find the queen, because that's the only way they'll be able to find his grandfather and Elena's father. Later, Ben and the others analyze the energy emitted by the chips and discover that it is most concentrated in a city in the United States. They also find out that the distribution center is located in that city, and with this, they conclude that the queen could be there. So, the group decides to go there, but they remember that Kevin's car is broken down. However, Kevin has a solution, and shows the group a new car that he was going to give to Ben as a gift. Ben then drives the car, and after some time, they arrive in the city. There, they see several people who are being controlled by the queen and who are working to send the chips all over the world. In that place, they also see Max, who was also helping to send out the chips. Upon entering the distribution center, Ben and the others are surprised because in addition to seeing thousands of people working, they also see Victor, who was the mysterious man in the abandoned warehouse. Seeing this, Kevin and Gwen become suspicious of Elena and say that she knew about everything. However, Elena tries to defend herself, saying that she didn't know anything. Ben decides to support Elena and says that Victor could also be controlled by the chips, just like his grandfather Max. After this, the group analyzes Victor again and realizes that he was producing thousands of chips, coming to the conclusion that the queen is inside him. Kevin then orders Ben to finish off Victor so that he can destroy the queen and save the world. Ben refuses, saying that he is not going to take out a person to save the world. With this, Ben plans to use the powers of his watch to save the planet. But Gwen warns him that if the queen controls one of the Omnitrix aliens, the whole planet will be in danger. So Ben comes up with a new plan and thinks about fighting the queen inside Victor's body. Ben also says that his watch managed to scan the DNA of the chips and that he will transform into an alien similar to the queen. Gwen keeps warning Ben that this is risky and that if he is controlled by the queen, he will join her in taking over the world. Ben says there is no other option and that he will trust in the powers of his watch. While they were talking, Elena is captured by one of the people there. Fortunately, Elena manages to defend herself, but by making noise, she draws the attention of the other people who begin to surround the group. With no other option, Ben tries to use the powers of the watch, but due to the interference, he transforms into the tiny nanomech. In this way, Ben gets an idea and by shrinking even further, enters through Victor's nose. Inside, Ben encounters the queen, who had been controlling Victor all this time. The queen tries everything to control Ben, but she fails and then attempts to defeat him. Meanwhile, outside, the queen manages to control all the people to attack Ben's friends, but they try to defend themselves. Realizing she can't control Ben, the queen starts activating all the chips in order to destroy the planet. Inside Victor's body, Ben was losing the fight, but at that moment he gathers all his strength and unleashes a power at the queen, finally managing to defeat her. Because of this, all the chips are destroyed, and people all over the world return to normal. As soon as Ben leaves Victor's body, the man also returns to normal and is freed from the queen's control. At that moment, Elena reunites with her father and is happy to see him again. After this, Max appears and, although he's irritated because Ben disobeyed his orders, he congratulates him for managing to save the world. Eventually, Max reunites with Victor and apologizes for not having trusted him before. Victor accepts the apology and they become friends again. In the final scene, Ben and the others welcome Elena into the group, and together they join forces to defeat future aliens and villains. And that's how the movie ends. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and take the opportunity to check out other amazing recaps available for you. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you in the next video.